What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? And Daniel Acevedo.
Yo.
What's going on? So, for all those just tuning in, definitely go back to Monday. So we talk about Snowflake and what's going on currently with that, and that's going to be coming. It's going to continue to evolve. So, definitely continue to tune in. Monday, Tuesday, our topics. Wednesday, discussion. Thursdays, Ask a CISSP. So last week, I spoke to Rico Randall. So he's a U.S. Marine veteran as well as a Red Hatter and the founder and host of Them Tech Folks. So Develop Every Mind Tech Folks, really good podcast. So definitely check that one out. And then this week, if you're listening to it in the correct order, it'll be Thursday's episode will be Mariah Simone Denson. So she is the president and founder of Global Patch. So it's an organization that's a nonprofit that is in the video game esports sector, and it really ties in well with IT and cybersecurity as well as transferable skills for multimedia. So really cool interview. Definitely check that one out. A little bit different, but people really seem to enjoy the ones with Matthew Hill, Sam Brown, and now Mariah Simone. So, just trying to diversify the portfolio. And then Friday's everything else: movies, books, games, all that good stuff. So definitely tune in for all that. Without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article actually comes from the BBC.com, right? So, if it says BBC on it, there's usually going to be something about the UK or the EU or something in there, right? But this was written by Liv McMahon. The title of it is Microsoft Recalls Screenshot Feature After Outcry, right? So it's not necessarily that they recalled it. What they did was they just made it to where there's an opt-in feature, right, for it. But what this was this was a feature, and what it did was for people that were working on their Microsoft systems, right? If you were using, it was a recall was the name of the feature for Copilot Plus, and it was supposed to make your life easier, right? It's supposed to be one of those things where it stores screenshots of your desktop activity, but just thinking through this, right? Like, as I was reading this, I was like, how did they not see this right from the jump, right? So for whatever reason, because I know I've done this before, right? Where sometimes I'm typing something in, and a lot of times when you're typing in the websites, like it's masked, right? When you put a password in there, and you think you're doing it right, and you're like, wait a minute, I know this is right. And they have the feature where you can actually show what's going on, right? Like you hit, usually it's like an I, and it's like show password or whatever it is, and then you're looking at it as you're typing it. Well, if you get a screenshot of that at some point, right, and that comes up and it's being saved, and you're not really paying attention, all of a sudden your password is out there for someone who, if they happen to get into your machine, right, or get into your system, they're able to see the username and the password in plain text, right? It's not masked or anything like that. That could be a problem. You know what I'm saying? So again, as I was reading this, I was like, man, how did they not see this like right from the jump? But you know who sparked this, right? The UK, right? We know how they do over there in the EU, and the UK was like, yo, we have concerns about this, right? Like this is not something that should be out there. Yeah, you want to try to improve privacy and security safeguards with all of this, right? So because of that, Microsoft was, even though the article says it's a recall, it wasn't really a recall. It was one of those things where it's like, hey, you determine how you opt into this, right? And that's what they're very good at over there, right? And we talk about this almost all the time. Like when it comes to leaning forward in customer privacy and things like that, like the EU is like far and away ahead, of the United States when it comes to this type of stuff. But they are the reason this got prompted, right? They were like, no, we can't have you doing this. And for me, for the exact reason I said, right? Like especially if you're taking screenshots, and it's like every few minutes or something like that. I'm trying to remember what it said in the article. Like when it takes the screenshots, it's something like crazy frequent. You know what I mean? Where it's like, wow. Like I'm thinking, okay, like maybe once every 15 minutes or something like that. It's like, no, like every few minutes or something like that. It's just crazy. But no, these are the types of things that the UK, like I said, is the EU really is really forward thinking on, and is ahead of the game for it, and it's appreciated, right? Because it's one of those things where hopefully you'll start to see it to where knowing, especially with these big companies, right? And we talked about this in the previous episode. We'll kind of talk about it offline about these companies getting too big. Hopefully this will spark them to think about these things before they go out and implement across the board, right? Like if you know the EU is going to come back at you for something, you start baking it in from the beginning. You're like, okay, This is the feature we want to have. The first thing you should be telling yourself is, okay, what is the EU going to say to us that we may have to backtrack or change on this, and just implement that across the board, right? Save yourself the work, save yourself the headache, you know what I mean? The negative publicity, you know what I mean, of it all. And just do it right up front, right? And I think some of these larger companies are going to start making that happen, right? Because these trillion-dollar companies that we know of, like, they are international. They are all over the world. You know what I mean? Microsoft isn't just in America, right? They're in all of it, right? When it comes to Apple, another trillion-dollar company, not just in America, they're everywhere, right? So it's going to be something they're going to have to start thinking forward on in the future, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's something that's going to help us in the long run. But Daniel, what's your thoughts on this, man?
Hey, you make some good points. I mean, I don't know. So Microsoft said originally, or at least in this article, that they tried to bake in security from the get-go for this feature, which understandably so, since the nature of what recall actually does. It's almost thinking like if you've ever worked with a virtual machine or some of the virtualization software, like snapshots, it does snapshots a lot of the servers, right? So that way you can go back to a point where it's not from an incremental or full backup. So you can go to a snapshot backup and then kind of you need to recover a file, recover certain things. It's IT ease of use kind of certain stuff, but at a endpoint level for your desktop, it's kind of like the first time I've ever seen that, and I could see where the concern will come from. It's funny because Ryan, you sent us this article, and I had read it before, and then I read the one that you sent us, and I realized I had read like 2 other articles this week of this exact same story. The other article I read talked about that one of the biggest outcries is that the snapshots that they do of your desktop isn't encrypted, right? That's kind of a big issue, right? So not only is the frequency of the snapshots every couple minutes, as also as if somebody gets access to your computer, if where those snapshots are being saved locally on your computer is unencrypted, now it doesn't matter if something's plain text or something on your screen is there or not. They have like a whole pool of snapshots of your desktop throughout the months that they can just like pull. It's already unencrypted, and then they can just go back reverse engineer and just pull all the data they want from there, right? I'm not too sure how those snapshots work, but I mean, you can go in a real deep dive. Like, I don't know what this data from the snapshots, if it gives actual like recovery, like you can recover from those snapshots, then you can actually recover to a new laptop from that data. So if somebody steals those snapshots, now they can replicate what you have in your home environment on a different laptop. So they can have like your personal folders with like a lot of like important information, passports or medical data or whatever. It really can lead to larger difficulties for people. So those are kind of my overall thoughts on this, Ryan.
Daniel,
what do you think?
before you pass it to Ryan, I'm sorry, Ryan. So
Yeah,
Daniel, to your
no,
point,
go for it.
with the snapshot though, right? And my knowledge is outdated and limited when it comes to virtualization. But you get to pick when you start your snapshot, right? So it's usually before you're going to start, to build something or whatever. You say, okay, here's when I'm going to take the snapshot from. I have it if I need to go back to it and roll back to it. You're not getting that option here, right? Like they're just taking it every so often. It's doing it whenever it wants to do it, right? Like that's kind of the difference between the two. But you're right. In virtualization, you're like, yep. This is what I'm doing from this point forward, boom, or from this point back. That's where I'm at, right?
Yeah, and Microsoft talks about this. Yeah, Microsoft talks about this. It's kind of like they're like, hey, we're giving you the option to opt in, and then we're giving you the option to tie this into Microsoft Authenticator. So that way there's a human presence that you have to be there. But to your point, though, that's one aspect. Cool, yes, I get to be there. I have to authenticate it on my app. But once it's live, it takes it every couple minutes, and then if somebody gets access to my computer, now they have kind of like the keys to the treasure, and then you're kind of screwed at that point. What do you think, Ryan?
No, I agree, and I think what's really cool about this is that it was brought up and kind of blew up prior to preview. So it didn't roll out yet. So that's the benefit of providing people's feedback, for the UK stepping in so quickly. Like if this was the US doing it, it would take months before they could actually say anything. It would already be implemented. Not to say, like, not to bash the US, is just, it takes a while to get these things before Congress individuals, and then it starts to snowball. For them on the other side, they're more proactive, and it's just like, I don't know why exactly, right? I'm not a member of UK Parliament, but they're pretty reactive when it comes to these type of situations. It only took days, if not a week or two, before they stepped in. The US is probably just now hearing about this, like, what, recall? What's that? And it could just be because of some of their systems may be a little bit more streamlined in that regard, or just the focus, right? We have a lot going on right now. So when it comes to politics, we have a lot. So it may just take a while because of that. But please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I always need to say up top, in the middle, and at the end, because this is what you have to do. If I will stop pandering you if we hit 600, I will ease off. So share with your friends. Or I should say 500, not 600. But I'll take 600. If you want to get us up to 600 subscribers by the end of this month, that'd be great as well. Tune into all the things and all the places. Subscribe to the newsletter. It's starting to push some really good numbers. We greatly appreciate that. But back on topic. So this will go into preview. I believe it'll be mid-June, so this month. And now you have to opt in through Hello and all the other good stuff. So I think this was for the best. And I do believe Microsoft did do its due diligence, and they believe that it was going to not bubble up like it currently did, but also to some regard, they believe that it will be secure and safe for people. But when you let things out into the wild, you start letting people play around with it like you're supposed to, right? Beta testers, things of that nature, they start to find out that not as safe as we thought, or from a mind mapping type situation, they're able to discover like, no, this is not going to work the way we want to, or backlash, right? Like they are now almost a $3 trillion company, if not a $3 trillion company. And like you said, they do business worldwide. So the UK has beef with it, then it goes to, the EU has beef with it, it goes to the UK, it goes to the US. We all have beef with it. It'll cause issues for Microsoft. So why not get ahead of it and just fix it? So it's already been updated on their blog. I went to their blog to check it out. They've already talked about how it is safe. However, we will allow you to opt in as opposed to having to opt out. And the ball's already started to roll. So good on us for being so vocal about something that's actually important, right? We're not. I remember we were doing the Death Star petition. Like, that's dumb. This is smart, right? So yeah, that was during the Obama administration, right? Like that crazy world we live in. But I like where we're going with this. I like that Microsoft was able to boast about the feature beforehand, and then people were able to say, "Hey, I have concerns," and then it was able to move through legislation. And there was no bills or anything signed, but it sparked enough attention where they're like, well, we don't want this to become a thing in the future.
So here's my thing, though, right? So, like, you think their intentions were pure, honest, or whatever?
No.
So, if okay. What was it you said? You said
I said good on them. Like, well, yeah, it's like at the end of the day, they don't want the bad publicity.
Right, no. When you were talking about when they were implementing, I thought you said something like.
Oh yeah. I think that they did think through it. I think they did their due diligence, is what I said, to make sure that it would be safe and secure. I don't think they did a good job of explaining that, because I still don't know how they were going to secure it anyway. Like, they've already rewritten history in their blog. Like, blogs completely changed.
So if that is true, right? If what Daniel said is true from the other articles he read, and these snapshots were actually unencrypted, like I find that hard to believe. And here's why I say that, right? So encryption should be one of those things, and even with encryption, it's not a guarantee with encryption, right? Like, we've had encryption standards that have been broken for years now, right? Where it's like, yeah, we can get through that, whatever it may need to be. But that should be where you start when it comes to stuff like this, right? Like with the encryption being something you do. But the reason they probably didn't is because of the amount of resources that are needed on your machine or whatever.
Yeah, the overhead would have been ridiculous.
Exactly. Like it would have been a resource hog if you were encrypting every few minutes too, right? So then like depending on the software, depending on the hardware you had at home, whether it be actual tower or laptop or whatever.
Yeah, the lowest common denominator would have been.
Exactly. It would have not been a good feature to them. So that's probably why they were like, okay, when they did it, like someone probably brought it up. The security guy brought it up and was like, okay, we got to encrypt this. And they were like, well, do we? Like,
do we? Yeah, that's always the thing.
That's the thing, right? So I think, again, I don't think they're out there trying to be malicious. I don't think these big corporations really are, right? But that should have been basic right off the jump. Like encryption should have been the standard to start off at, to me.
Yeah. And on top of, like, I was gonna I'm sorry to cut you off, Daniel, but I think you brought up, Shannon, that they should already be kind of ahead of it. They should already kind of think of what the UK is going to think before it happens. I'm sure they have people already in those places, right? Being Microsoft, I'm sure they have a connect of some sort, and it wasn't brought up maybe because it just, the way you sell something, right? So that you have the account executive
selling it versus the security guy or gal selling it, right? So the language is different. But go ahead, Daniel.
No, I was gonna say like it's just I can't be thinking of this now, and I'm pretty sure they already thought of this. But like if it takes snapshots, as long as it's dumping it somewhere on the hard drive, and then you suggest that at least it gets BitLockered, at least then the hardware itself on the laptop or desktop is encrypted at that point, right? So if you don't want to encrypt the actual snapshot in itself, then at least that's a easy way around. But then you have to give that advice to the users that are using this, so that way it can be configured on everybody's system at the point of use, right? So
when it comes to private citizens, right? Like data at rest, like securing that is not something they're really thinking about. You know what I'm saying? Like to bring a BitLocker, right? Like they're like, oh, my data just sits on the hard drive, it's safe. Like no, it really isn't. Like you have to protect that too. It's just not something the private citizen is thinking about.
My bad. I couldn't type fast enough. I was trying to see if I could find the original post, right? Like go to Internet Archive to see if I could find the original, like how did it, but I just couldn't type it in quick enough. But not to also like they may still be under attack as far as I know.
I was like, we just talked about this, right?
Yeah. Conspiracy theory. Maybe they're trying to hide this. No, I'm just playing.
You said Microsoft was behind it. You said Microsoft was
No, I'm not gonna say that. I want a $3 trillion company shutting me down.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what you use? Windows. Guess what you won't be able to do anymore? Compute. We'll stop it all. But no, I'm glad to see its implementation's already been changed before going to production. That both shows our power and influence, as well as Microsoft's a big ship, but they can be nimble when they need to be. And they're like, this is going to roll out, so figure it out. What's going to make everybody happy? And in this case, it's the having to opt in versus having to opt out, which I think is always a good feature to have. Because we talked about this like maybe a year or two ago with Google Sidewalk. Remember that was a big deal? Where it was basically all of your security features would talk to each other, right? It was a feature where all like the doorbells would talk to each other, all of the squares would talk to each other, and they would build a mesh within your community. So you can find your keys, or if a kid is missing, you can find footage. And the more people thought about it, they were like, wait a minute, this is surveillance on a very large scale. And they Google had to kind of walk it back and had to make it too easy to opt out. In this case, I think the feature should always be an opt-in feature. So it's just better for a technical standpoint, as well as it's just from a consumer ease of use standpoint as well. Like, do I want this feature? Let me think about it, and then click, right? As opposed to, how do I get rid of this feature? And that's always hard. It's always buried somewhere deep. So I think just from ease of use standpoint, it's better.
And with that Google Sidewalk thing, I'm fairly certain they weren't the first to think of that, because my alarm company actually rolled out a feature that was like that. It was like, everybody that's in, the using company, we could do this, and it was the same exact thing. And I was like, opt out. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Apple AirTags work that way. That's how the Apple AirTags work. Yeah, it's the same thing. They use all the Apple phones that are in the vicinity to ping off each other.
If you are looking for a missing child or something to that extent, or like murder footage, you need to let me know ahead of time before I opt in. Like every time that thing pops up, says, "Do you want to help?" Hell no, because you just don't know. Like, is it real? Is it been spoofed? I might be going to DEF CON later this year, and if that happens, I am on super paranoid mode. Like, I'm not opting into anything. If anything, I might not even bring my phone.
Don't bring your phone.
Might find a jitterbug.
Do not.
Yeah, don't bring that phone. Yeah,
because I want to wind up on the pwn wall or whatever they have. Like, no way in hell I want to wind up on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I digress. We'll circle back around to that one closer to DEF CON time if it comes down. But yeah, definitely continue to tune in to all the things. Find us in all the places. Either the other side of the firewall, the other side of the FW. You can find me. I'm at Right Security Guy on pretty much every platform you can think of. Or Ask a CISSP as my two tags. You can find Daniel in all those places as well. Or not all those places, I'm sorry. You can find Daniel by his name in like one place. And you can't find Shannon at all. So don't even try. Somebody out in the community is trying. He's like, I'm gonna figure out where Shannon's at and how to reach him. But don't do that. But definitely continue to tune in. Check out Ask a CISSP. Both last week and this week were amazing. Every week is amazing. So go back. There's a playlist. Check them all out. Subscribe. Hit up the newsletter. Stay safe.
Stay secure.